Hey Blazers, this episode is brought to you by Audible.com, an Amazon company. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/Blaze Entertainment.
Or visit the sponsor and supporters links on our website at intotheblaze.com. With over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Now let's start the show.
You're locked in to the hottest station on the planet.
What's going on, Blazers? We're back with another episode of Blaze Entertainment Spotlight Edition, and we are joined, unfortunately, first, before I even get into that, Miss Free was not able to join us today, but we're blazing on as usual. But we are joined with an awesome person. When I heard his story, I was just really inspired, and I really wanted to know a little bit more about what he does. A fantastic gentleman from our Americana podcast, Josh Hallmark, is here. How are you, Josh?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So can you tell us, first of all, for those who don't know about our Americana podcast, can you tell us a little bit more about it so that way we can kind of delve in?
Yeah, absolutely. So Our Americana is a podcast, and I'm sure we'll talk a little more about the roots of it, but essentially it's kind of exploring small town America in a way that I think small town America isn't really discussed, specifically culturally and politically. I went on this long trip, and I am from the West Coast. I've only ever really lived in big cities, and I had a perception of small town America that through my travels I found was not entirely accurate. And I think especially in this political climate, like the America I'm seeing, supporting a certain candidate is not reflective of the America I saw when I was out on the road. So I wanted to kind of tell that story, and it started as just focusing on unique and cute small towns, and it's really evolved over time into being more about community and how people from all walks of life come together in a community, usually because of a strange or bizarre or controversial event. And that to me has been just a really interesting story to tell, is, small town America reacting to and cultivating community because of events that take place there.
Right on. And that's really what drew me into the story of the birth of Our Americana. And I really appreciated like how you kind of focused on not just, these are the sites that we want to go and see, and, this is all pretty and stuff like that. But you actually like went into the sociology of it. If I'm not mistaken, I guess that would be the right word, right? The sociological aspects of those towns.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because, and I was really guilty of this, is that to me, especially in a lot of these flyover states that I've been trying to focus a little more on, small town America means conservative, redneck, gun-toting, anti-gay, anti-minority, uneducated. And, unfortunately, Trump, that seems to be the audience that the news likes to focus on. Mm-hmm. And, I am having a hard time reconciling lately, like, the people I met on the trip who, probably support him as a candidate, and trying to reconcile, like, the people I got to know and who were so kind and generous with me and the people who are supporting that candidate. But I guess that's neither here nor there. But to me, sociologically, it was fascinating to tell that story, especially as millennials are kind of being priced out of big cities and moving back to their small towns, seeing this merger of very, very opposing ideas, and seeing how those kind of grow and impact others. And yeah, I think it's important to tell because for me, it opened my eyes up quite a bit, and it really challenged the way I thought about people. And I never would have said this aloud, but I really saw Americans in a very black and white way, and particularly people who didn't think like me. I thought of them very myopically and one note. So the podcast and our travels has changed that, and I thought it was important for me as someone who experienced that to kind of pass that story along.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you, out of the travels that, because it says that you started out of Seattle, Washington, which I actually just recently moved from there last year to California. So, kudos to that. And then, but my question is like, what was one of your least favorite places to go, and then what was one of your most interesting places and I guess fun places to go?
Well, the least, and my partner and I strongly disagree on this, but my least favorite was Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And so we went because that's where Dollywood is, mm-hmm. which Dollywood in and of itself was an amazing experience. But the town is like, I've never seen so many Confederate flags waved with such blissful pride. Mm-hmm. And we did have one weird experience where we were turned away from getting discounts because discounts were only available to married couples. And it's very it's very much like the look and feel of Las Vegas, but with some very close-minded social views. So it was a little terrifying. And then I would say, it's hard to pick a favorite. Our favorite town was in northern Michigan. It's called Petoskey. Mm-hmm. And I always describe it as the town from Gilmore Girls. Just like gazebos on every block, and, everybody knows each other, and they have all these little town events, and really, really beautiful, a lot of Victorians. And it's this tiny, tiny town in the middle of nowhere, but really progressive. And cosmopolitan. So I think that was our favorite. And then most exciting, I don't know. When you live on the road for 6 months, every day is exciting. Like even when we were in terrible places, it was exciting because we were seeing something new and experiencing something new.
Yeah. Now, what was your main vision behind, like, because you said that the show had evolved from when it first started, as I guess most shows would, but like, what was your original vision and how has it evolved? In what way?
Well, so it's funny, and I feel a little bit like a sellout, but I'll expand on that in a second. My original, the whole intent behind this was, I'm writing a book about our travels, and I really felt like I needed a vehicle to build an audience for that book. And so I thought it would be great to kind of highlight some of our favorite towns that we went through on a podcast, and that would help me build the book for the audience. Help build the audience for the book. And what ended up happening was, I loved doing the podcast so much. I had such a strong and warm reception. And like I said, the stories and the way I was storytelling evolved, and that to me kind of became the new focus. And I'm still working on the book, but I think the podcast is it's a much more dynamic and effective way of telling that story. And there's so much material. It's been a blast. And so I think it's evolved just from intent, but also through the way I've been telling stories and the reception to those stories, and seeing that there really is just a vast bucket of material out there.
Right on. And then you mentioned your partner, Andrew. Now, is that like partner yeah. or like co-host partner?
No, not co-host. He does not want to be on the radio in any way, shape, or form. Like partner, like your grandma would refer to your boyfriend partner.
Okay. And how long have you guys been together?
Just about 5 years.
Right on. That's a really long time in our world. So congratulations on that.
I know, it's crazy. Every time I say that, it makes me feel like I'm 90.
Right? And you started doing the show with him, correct? Or was it something that you originally intended to do, and then he kind of like jumped in and said, "Hey, let's do it"?
No, it's always just been me. He he's interested in it from the perspective of a listener, but he's not really interested in the production of it at all.
Oh, okay. So and you guys, do you ever find difficulty having, especially like, with the issues that we're dealing with, especially our current political climate and the things that we've already had to endure as LGBT, Q. Has that been, and I know you mentioned, Tennessee being one of the worst places you've been in, but has that been something that has been kind of a roadblock for you on your journey, traveling to these different places? And have you noticed that homophobia is rampant in these smaller towns, or is it just something that people just look at as a misconception?
I kind of touched on it earlier. That's what I'm having a hard time reconciling, because I didn't see it on the road. And when we left, we talked a lot about safety. Like, do we get a gun? And then the joke was always, if we had a gun, we would probably use it on each other. And, do we keep a baseball bat in the van? Like, we were really concerned about safety, I think, particularly because of just being gay out on the road. Mm-hmm. And that pretty quickly stripped away. I think there were a few times where I was a little nervous just because of where we are, not even because of anything that had taken place. Mm-hmm. But I was pleasantly surprised. And what was really interesting was our trip was during the majority of the primaries, and I'm a big political junkie. So whenever there was a debate, I made sure we were at an RV park that had a rec room so we could watch the debate on TV. Mm-hmm. And it just, like, coincidentally, every debate we happened to be in a swing state. And we would be in the rec room watching the debates with, older RV people who, I don't know politically, but, they are in their 60s to 70s, and a lot of them are from the Midwest. So I think there are, certain assumptions that could be made about who they're voting for. Mm-hmm. And they were the kindest, most welcoming people. No one cared that we were gay. We stayed in, like, really scary, like, not even RV parks, like trailer parks in rural Missouri and rural Mississippi, and like never once did being gay create an issue. And I see the Trump supporters, and so I know that I'm sure many of the people we encounter do have mixed feelings, and that's probably generous, about homosexuality. Mm-hmm. But they were gracious in the way that they approached us, and so I don't know. I struggle with it a lot. What's better? Like, do I wish that they would just call me a faggot to my face? Right. Or do I prefer that they're kind, but then, vote to strip my rights?
Right, exactly. It's like a catch-22.
I don't have an answer in that regard, but totally. But overall, Americans are kind, wonderful people, even if maybe they vote ignorantly. And that was a beautiful takeaway. We always joke that in Wisconsin, we encountered 4 assholes, and that's pretty impressive.
That is pretty impressive, because I see them on a daily basis.
Cynical, but impressive.
That's funny. Now, where can people find our Americana podcast? Like, what type of outlets do you guys have?
Yeah, so I always refer to it as a we, but it's basically just me. I don't know why I do that. I have it on iTunes, it's on Stitcher, it's on Google Play, it's on Podomatic, and then you can catch it on, you can stream it from my website, which is Americana.com.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit there. I couldn't hear you.
iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podomatic, and then you can stream it from my website, which is Americana.podcast.com.
Right on. And then we'll also put up all these links on our website once the show airs. So I first of all want to thank you for taking the time out to, because I know you and your travels right now. So I wanted to take the time out to thank you for taking the time out to be on the show. So I really appreciate that. And telling your story, because it's really interesting. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And then I would love to have you on the show again. And then, for you to let us know where you're at. Where are you currently at the moment?
Well, yeah. So to be clear, our trip ended a year ago. So okay. We live in New York now. Yeah. And so for the last year, I've been working on the podcast, just sedentarily in New York.
And then do you have any plans to do more trips, or is it just something that you're just kind of taking a break right now on?
Yeah, so that's actually an interesting question, and we didn't touch on it. And I think, especially for a gay audience, this is probably the crux of our whole trip. Is we decided to take this trip because our relationship was at an impasse. We had been together for 3.5 years, and it was starting to get pretty. And he really wanted to move to New York because he's an apparel designer, and I did not at all. I really loved Seattle. I moved around a lot in my 20s, and I just kind of was ready to settle down. And so this argument over New York became a 3.5 year slow burn, and it just got to a point where we were not happy. Mm-hmm. And he suggested, why don't I need to get out of Seattle, and maybe we don't go to New York, but why don't we both wanted to explore America. Why don't we just buy a van and live in it and drive around the country? And to me, I was just at a point where I did not think our relationship was going to last. So it was why not? There's nothing really to lose. Mm-hmm. And that 6 months on the road living in a van saved our relationship. Because I think when you are in a confined spot, you can't run away from your problems. You have to face them. Mm-hmm. And you have to learn to communicate. And you have to learn to compromise. And you have to learn to take things in stride. And I think, granted, living in 90 square feet for 6 months can be rough, but the takeaways and the lessons learned saved our relationship. And now we're in the best place we've ever been because of that trip. So I think it's this combination of shared experiences, but also learning, on the fly to compromise and communicate effectively. That is so important. And I would recommend the trip to anyone, but I would particularly recommend doing this to people who are kind of at an impasse in their relationship.
I love that. That's really awesome. Thank you for sharing that, because I know sometimes that's really difficult for people to talk about in terms of their relationships and stuff like that. So I'm glad that number one worked out for you too, and number two, that it became not only a story that you can share amongst yourselves, but also with your audience. So I'm sure that has been expressed on your show.
Well, yeah, and I think it's important that we do talk about it, because the more we talk about these things, the more, not normal, but I think the less abnormal other people feel for experiencing them.
Right.
So I think it's important to talk about the ugly stuff, because it makes us all feel a little more better. And like I said, it all comes back to community. It makes us feel like we're part of a community.
Right, and you feel less alone. It's am I the only one dealing with this?
Yeah, no, exactly. And you feel less crazy.
Exactly. Well, Josh, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and I really, really would love to have you on the show again. And again, you guys need to check out, our Americana podcast. It sounds amazing. It's great audio, and I already started listening to season 1. So check it out, and yeah.
Perfect.
Thanks so much.
Can I really quickly tease an episode?
Absolutely. Please.
Okay. So if you're going to start, and I feel like this is I feel like Meryl Streep and Sophie's Choice. There is, to me, a favorite. It's 2 episodes. It's a 2-part, but I think it really kind of will give you what the podcast is, and it's about this town on Vancouver Island that an orphaned baby orca lost his pod, and they're really social creatures, so he kind of adopted this town for 5 years. And everybody in this town came to become this orca's family, which created a lot of stir, because conservationists were really upset and felt like the town was doing the wrong thing, but then a lot of biologists felt like he really needed socialization and the town was doing the right thing. And then there were local people in town who were worried he was damaging their boats. And so it became this really big international story, taking place in this tiny, tiny town of I think 600 people in the middle of nowhere over this baby orca that just wanted community. Mm-hmm. And so I would listen to that, and it's 2 episodes called Gold River, British Columbia. Start there. It'll give you a good feeling for what the podcast is, and I think it's really the
I'm sorry, you broke the last part. You broke up. You broke up at a. It's really. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really just the acme of both storytelling, but storytelling about community. So start there, and then work your way backwards.
Right on, and that's I believe that's in season 2, correct? Gold River, BC.
Correct.
Yes. All right. I'm definitely now. I'm going to listen to that because I started in season 1, so I'll start there.
Awesome.
Thanks again, Josh, for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. I had fun. It was great talking with you.
Yes, same here. And then, again, you guys, if you guys want to know more about our Americana podcast, you can go ahead and visit our website at www.entertheblaze.com, or you can go directly to its website at our-americana.com. Thanks a lot, Josh, and we'll talk to you soon.
Perfect.
All right, take it easy, guys.
All right, thanks, Kwame.
Bye.
Bye.